Hello friend, how are you? Welcome to Tripan Study Center, writing each and every point of it. Let's see what is our topic today. Today we discussion most important chapter here, hegemony in a world political. This is the most important chapter. There are chapters of political science, chapter number 3rd. There is the first question arrive here. Discuss the USA hegemony in the hard power. This is the most important question here. Discuss as a hegemony as a hard power. There is the most important here. First of all, there are first meaning of hegemony. What do you mean to the hegemony? Hegemony is related to their relation, a pattern, and balance of military capability between the state. This is a hegemony is here. The hegemony is mean to the related to the relation, patterns, and balances of military capability between to the state. And the first point, according to the US hegemony is here. One example, hard power is a Ayesha who lost here the legs in there is America a missile attack. One example, hard power is Ayesha who is a lost there a leg in on the American missile attack. It's a hard power as money that has a broken Ayesha has a body, if not yet a spirit. This is important is money here. And the US military dominance today is both absolute and the relatives as they have to the military capability that can reach any point on the planet and no one can match with them. This is important second point here. And the third point here, the USA today spend more on it is a military capability and military research and development and technology. This is important third point here. The USA today spend more on the military capability and military search and development technology. And fourth point here, the military dominance of the USA is not just based on the higher military spending, but one qualitative is gap are technological and no one can compare with them. And one example it is the USA inventions of Iraq. This is important. And USA military capability has shown to be have serious weakness in policing and occupied territories as after invention of Iraq. The US has not been able to force the Iraqi people into submitting to be a occupation force of the US lead coalition. According to the chapter hegemony in the world politicals, a second question is the most important arrive here. Explain the UNA operations called Operation Desert Storm. This is the most important Operation Desert Storm here. And this is operations according there are hegemony in a world politicals. Their answer in August 1990, Iraq invaded to the Kuwait. You know that the Operation Desert Storm is here started August 1990. Iraq invaded Kuwait. A first point here, series of the diplomatic attempt to fail to the convincing Iraq to quit it is a aggression. This is important. There is the Operation Desert Storm here, a series of diplomatic attempts fail at the convincing Iraq to be quit it is aggressions. And so the UN decided to liberate Kuwait by force. So the UN decided to liberate Kuwait by force. And third point is important also here. A massive coalition force of 6,60,000 troops from the 34 country and fought against Iraq and defected it what come to be now as the first Gulf War. Is important. You know that 6,60,000 troops from a 34 country. That is known as the first Gulf War. The Iraqi force were quickly defeated and forced to be withdrawn from Kuwait. The Iraqi force were quickly defeated and forced to withdraw from the Kuwait, and this fully operation was termed as a Operation Desert Storm. There is a fully operation was termed as Operation Desert Storm. The next third question arrive here. What was the Gulf War of 1990? This is important. What was the Gulf War of 1990? This is important. You know that Gulf War is the most important here. In August 1990, Iraq invaded to Kuwait. Iraq invaded to Kuwait and occupy and annexed it. United Nations tried to convince Iraq to quiet its aggression, but the UNA failed to convince. You know that there's an important point here. August 1990, Iraq invaded to Kuwait and occupy and annexed it to the United Nations and tried to convince Iraq to be quiet its aggressions, but UN failed to convince. This is an important point. And second here, then the UNA mandated their liberation of Kuwait by force. There is a liberation of Kuwait by force. The USA President George H.W. Bush heralded the emergence of New World Order. This is the most important here. The President of George H.W. Bush is heralded the emergence of New World Order. In response to this, there was an emergence of war which come to be known as the First Gulf War. The First Gulf War, in this war, a coalition of forces from almost 34 countries fought against Iraq. There is the most important First Gulf War here. The coalition of force is almost 34 countries fight against Iraq. This is the most important here Gulf War. And this war was fought under to the code name Operation Desert Storm. There is the war is a fight under their code of name Operation Desert Storm. And this operation of the UNA was mostly American. This operation as UNA was mostly American Operation Desert Storm. And there was about 75% of the force from the USA, 75% of USA and 25% for other countries. The First Gulf War is relieved there was technical gap that has to open up between USA military force and other countries. This is important. The First Gulf War relieved there was technological gap and that has to open up between the USA military force and other countries. This is important. The USA was smart bombs made it a computer war. The use of a smart bomb made it computer wars and disparate to television coverage made it a video game war. This is the most important here, Gulf War here. The next fourth question is important. Mention the main event of 9/11. 9/11 is the most important for the view of Americans here. There is 9/11 is very sadness incident here. You know that first of all, understanding the causing of 9/11. What are the reasons of 9/11 here? The first of all here is answer. Islamic extremism was started by the Iranian Revolution. The Soviet invasions of Afghanistan and the assassinations of Egyptian president. That extremism turned anti-American because of USA support for Israel and the repressive as cellular Arab regimes. This is important. Ensuring birth rates as limited and economical opportunities generated. And social pressure also. You know that soaring of birth rate and limited economical opportunity and generated social pressures here. Extremists of thinking embrace of violence because local regimes left no other option peaceful of democratic reforms here. This is important. The proliferation of weapons give a activist and the means to be inflict harm, and the invasion of communication, frustrated and worldwide publicities about there is the deeds of which is a serve their psychological welfare objective and unsettling western population. It's important. The main point here, 9/11, there is event is the most important point here. The first of all, on 9 September 2001, 19 hijacker coming from the Arab countries. You know that is the 9 September 2001, 19 hijacker coming from the Arab country and took control over 4 American commercial aircraft, and shortly after takeoff and there is them into the important building in the USA. Know that is an important point here. On the 11th September 2001, 19 hijacked coming from the Arab countries and took control over American commercial aircraft, and shortly after takeoff and flowed them into the important building in the USA. One airliners each crashed into the north and south tower of the World Trade Center in New York. It's important. One airlines each crashed into the north and south tower of the World Trade Center in New York. A third aircraft crashed into the Pentagon building in Iraqi, Virginia, and where USA Defense Department in a headquarters. Is important. There is an important one here. A crash in the north and south tower of the World Trade Center. Another here, aircraft crashed into the Pentagon building is Iraqi, Virginia, where the USA Defense Department is a headquarters. And the next year, the fourth aircraft, presumably bound for the Capitol's building of USA Congress, come down in the field in the Pennsylvania. This is important here. Fourth attack, Pennsylvania, and the attack killed nearly 3,000 people on this incident. This incident is called 9/11. Our next fifth question is the most important here. What is the mean by the Operation Iraqi Freedom? That is important. What do you mean by the Operation Iraqi Freedoms here? And mention its main objective as well as the hidden objective. There is the mention of the objective and hidden objective also. This is the most important question here. Operation Iraqi Freedoms here. Operation Iraqi Freedom, it was the code name. Operation Iraqi Freedom, it is the only name of the code. Advance of the Iraq by the USA. USA given a code of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And this operation was launched on 19 March 2003. And more than 40 other countries joined their coordinations of the willings after the UN refused to be give a permission for the invasion. This is important. From Operation Iraq Freedom, there is a name given by the USA. This is a code and the launching by the 9th March 2003. And the most important things here, 40 other countries joined their coalition of billing here. It's important. Let's see other main objectives and hidden objectives here. The main objective and hidden objectives here. The main as well as the hidden objective of the inventions was to prevent Iraq from developing in the weapon of mass destruction, means WMD, weapon of mass destruction. This is WMD. When no proof of the WMD was found in Iraq, it was speculated that the invention was motivated by the other objectives, which included controlling oil field of Iraq and installing a regime friendly to the United States. This is important. There are main objective and hidden objective here. Hidden objective here of weapons of mass destruction means WMD, and there is a control in the field of Iraq and install their designs of friendly to be United States. It's important. And then let's see the consequence of Operation Iraq Freedom. The consequence of the Operation Iraq Freedom, there is the most important here. Its use was not able to the peacefully Iraq even to the government and feel the swiftly a fully fledged operation was originated against the USA by Iraq. The USA had a loss of 3,000 military personnel in the war, and since the USA led to the invasion, it was estimated that as a 50,000 Iraqi civilian has been killed. This is important consequence here. There is the USA. There a fully folded operation was designed to the against the USA by the Iraq, and there is a 3,000 military personnel is war is lost their life, and 50,000 Iraqi civilians they are killed in this war. This is the most important consequence. Our next sixth question is the most important here. How did the United States of America launch a war against the Iraq? This is the most important question here. How did the United States of America launch a war against Iraq? This is the most important. On 9th March 2003, the USA launched its invasion of Iraq under the code name of Operation Iraq Freedom. The more than 40 other countries joined their USA lead to the coalition of billing after the UN refused to give it a mandate of the invasion. This is important. But there is a reason of the launch against their Iraq for their Operation Iraq Freedoms here. The purpose of invasion was to prevent the Iraq from a developing weapon of mass destruction. First of all, there is the most important reasons here. Development weapon of mass destruction. And second here, since no evidence of WMD was found in Iraq. This is the most important conclusion here. There is no evidence of the WMD was found in Iraq. It was speculated that their invention was motivated by other objectives, such as the control of Iraqi oil, fuel, and install a engine friendly to the US. This is the most important here. And thought there is a government of Saddam Hussein fell swift, and the USA has not been able to be pacify Iraq. Instead, they are fully fledged insurgencies against there is a US's occupation was ignited in the Iraq. This is the most important reasons here. And while the USA has lost over 3,000 military personnel in the war, Iraq has considered to be very much higher. It is a consequently estimate that is a 50,000 Iraqi civilians has been killed since the US led invasion. This is the most important point here. There is an important point in here. And the last point here, it is now widely recognized that the US invasion of the Iraq is some commercial respect was both to the military and political failure. This is important. There is a military and political failure here. The next seventh question is the most important here. Analyze the role of US in global war and terrorism after the attack on the World Trade Center on 9/11/2001. That's the most important question here. There's a role of analyzing here the USA global war on terrorism after the attack of World Trade Center 9/11. This is the most important question according to the examination here. There is a highlight. There is a point here. The US response to the 9/11 was simply to the cruel Giorgio and bosses of Republican Party. George Bush of the Republican Party on this time. The 9/11 swift and cruel George Bush of the Republican Party had become a president at the time of the attack on the World Trade Center. The role of the USA in the global war is that terrorism could be understood through the following point. And this point is the most important point here. You know that 9/11 is cruelly George Bush time, and there George Bush is here. A Republican Party become a president at the time of attack of World Trade Center. It's important. A main point here: the Bush had to much-hearted view of USA interest and of the means by which they advance them to support of the global war on the terrorism. This is the most important point here. The Bush had to the much had a harder view of the USA interest and their means which they advance and means into part of the global war terrors and the use of launching operation ending freedom. This is the most important here. It was a launch against those who were to the suspect the behind the attack of 9/11. The suspected is mainly A1 Qaeda as a Taliban regime were to target. This is important. This was a launch against the who is were to the suspect behind the attack of 9/11. This is important. And the USA force named arrest all over to the world. The USA force made an arrest all over the world often without their knowledge of the government of person began arrested. This is most important step here for the USA. The USA force to made arrest all over the world and without any knowledge of the government. You know that is the most important action here for the USA. And they were a transport across the country and returned to the secret cell. There is a secret cell established here and some of them were about to be a Guantanamo Bay as a USA neighbors based on the Cuba, whereas the personnel did not enjoy the protection of any kind of law. This is the most important for the US to take a step of their 9/11s here. Our next question is 8 here, which is the most important here. Analyze the political impact of the hegemony of the USA on the world. This is the most important political impact here, or hegemony of the USA on the world. They are analyzing here. And see, there is the first point here. It would be wrong to be see a USA hegemony in a purely military and economical term, without having considerations of political ideology or the culture dimension of the USA hegemony. You know that this is important. It would be wrong to be see the USA hegemony in a purely military and economical term, and without having considerations of political means ideology and culture dimension of the USA hegemony. This is important. And the second point here. In this scenes, hegemony is about their capacity to be a manufacture consent. Here hegemony is a concern with the social, political and particularly ideological superiority. This is important. In this sense, hegemony is about the capacity to the manufacture consent here. Hegemony is a concern with the social, political and particularly ideological superiority here. And the hegemony arises when to the dominant nation win their consent of their dominated class by the convincing them to view their world in a manner their view to the world. That's important in the hegemony for their USA in the ball. And the next point is important. Fourth, in the field of world politics and the international relations, the notions of the hegemony suggest that a superpower for the USA and use not only a military power but also ideology of resources. This is a main power here. There is not a use of military power but also use of ideology resources in a political power, and to shape and determine the direction of world politics as well as the behavior of other competing and smaller states here. But not only this, USA also is influenced their behavior and action of the weaker states in such a way that favor its interest. This is important. This is a 4th point is important. The America is not only here a military power. There is also ideological sources mean political power, and this is a hegemony for the USA. And the 5th point here, this attitude of hegemony is called soft power, where the superpower USA dominate the international relation and world political through the political precision than the creations. That's important. Our next 9th question is the most important here. Assess the new world order. This is important. New World Order, which emerged after the collapse of the Soviet Union? This is important questions here. Assess the New World Order, which emerged after the collapse of the Soviet Union. This is important. The sudden disintegrations of Soviet Union surprised all of the USA hegemony began in the 1991. There is Soviet Union surprise all their USA hegemony began to the 1991 after the degradations of Soviet Union from the international sense. This is the most important here. There are Soviet Union surprises here, all the hegemony of USA for 1991, and this is the most important for here. And second here, in August 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait, occupied and annexed it. United Nations tried to convince Iraq to quit its aggression, but the UN failed to be convinced. Then the UN mandated the liberations of Kuwait by the force. The USA President George H.W. Bush hailed their emergence of New World Order. This is important here. First of all here, the USA convinced for the Iraq from the Kuwait occupy, and there is a not understanding here. So the USA President George W.H. Bush is helped to emerge of the New World Order. This is an important point. And third year, in a response to be this, there was an emergence of war, which is come to be now as a First Gulf War. This is important. There are First Gulf War in this, and this is war is a how the coalition's force from almost 24 countries fought against Iraq. This is the most important here. 34 countries fought against the Iraq here, and this war is a fight under the code name of Operation Desert Storm, and this operation was the UN was mostly American, and there was about 75% of force from the USA. This is important. Operation Desert Storm, there is a name code of here, and there is a mostly of American participant in this action, and there is 70% force of here USA. The First Gulf War revealed that there was a technological gap that has opened up between to the US military force and other country. But this use of a smart bomb made it a computer war, and spared television coverage made it as a video game war. You know that this is important. This time there is here a war of the video game live, and there is a coverage for the television here of the war. The next 10th question is the most important here. What was the operation Enduring Freedom? This is the most important question here. What was the operation Enduring Freedom here? You know that this is the most important here. Here's the show, there is the answer. The USA launched Operation Enduring Freedom as a part of global war terror against all those suspected behind the 9/11 attack, mainly Al-Qaeda and Taliban regime in Afghanistan. This is the most important Operation Enduring Freedom here. They are suspected the 9/11 attack. There is a reasons here global war terror. There is a mainly suspected here Al-Qaeda and Taliban regime of Afghanistan. And third, the Taliban regime is Afghanistan was easily is overthrown as a terrorist attack by Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban still continue and more so against a Western target. You know that is the most important. The Taliban regime and there is Al-Qaeda terrorist attack is the Taliban still continue the more against the Western target. The target of operation made by the USA force was all over the world. The target operation made by the USA force was all over the world. The next point is also important. There is arrest people without the knowledge of the government of the persons began to arrested. This is the most important here operation. There arrest people without the knowledge of government of the person began to the arrested. This is here activity show the hegemony of the USA, and this person were determined it is a secret Parisians, and some of those were bought their Guantanamo boys by and the USA naval base on the Cuba, where they have to the neither protection of international law and not their own country law on that the USA. This is the hegemony here show, and even US representatives are not allowed to be interact with this prisoner. This is the most important point here. The arrested people without the knowledge of the government of the person began to arrest, and this person was detained to the secret Parisians. This is the most important, detained to the secret Parisians. And some about there is a Guantanamo is by the USA naval base on the Cuba. This has another protection international law and not their own country law on that the USA is made. Even UN representatives are not allowed to be interact with this prisoner. Our next 11th question is the most important here. Economical preponderance of the USA is inseparable from their structural power. Describe. This is the most important question I for the different question here. Economical preponderance of the US is inseparable from their structural power. Describe. This is an important question here for the exam view. As a first point, on economical preponderance of USA is inseparable from the structural power, and this can be justified the following way. This is an important point. The Bretton Woods Institute set of the US after the Second World War and still constitutes there is a best structure of the world economy, and thus we can conclude that the World Bank and International Monetary Fund means IMF and WTO are the protector of US hegemony. Know that this is the most important point here. We can conclude that is the World Bank, International Monetary Fund means IMF and WTO are the protector of USA hegemony. This is the most important answer. A classical example of the structural power of the US is the academic degree. It's called Master in a Business Administration, means MBA. The classic example of the structural power of the USA is their academy degree. It's called Master of Business Administration, means MBA. The idea that a business is a profession that depends upon the skill that can be tough as a university is a unique American. You know that is important. The idea that business is a profession that depends upon a skill that can be taught in a university is uniquely American. The first business school in the world, the Wharton School. Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania and established in 1881. This is the most important period of time here. The first MBA course was initiated around 19th century. This is 90s here. This is important. The first MBA course outside the USA was established only in 1950. Today, there is no country in the world in which the MBA is not a prestigious academy degree here. So our 12th question arrive here. This is the most important here. Analyze the main constraint to be US hegemony in the present day of the world. This is the most important question. There is hegemony of present day of world on the America, USA. This is the most important here. You know that there are three constraints is American power, the biggest restriction to the American hegemony. The lies within their heart of the hegemony itself. You know that there is a three constraint is American power, the biggest restriction to be American hegemony lies within the heart of hegemony itself. These constraints are institutional, open nature of American society for a NATO for the first and second constraints here. This is the most important NATO here. The USA launched Operation Enduring Freedom as the part of global war of terror. Against all this, a suspected began to be 9/11 attack, mainly for a Al Qaeda and Taliban regime in Afghanistan. This is the most important here, Hegemony of present day of the world of America. Thought the Taliban regime in African was easily both rose as a terrorist attack by Al Qaeda and Taliban still continue and more so against the Western target. The target of operation made by the US force was all over the world. You know that is important. The Al Qaeda and the Taliban still continue and more so against Western target. The arrest people without the knowledge of government of the person begin arrest. This is their power of as many of present of USA. And this person were returned to secret prisons. Some of them were is about to be Guantanamo base or USA Navy's base in the Cuba, and where they have is neither protection of international law and nor their own country on that the US. This is the most important their point here. Even at there are UNA representative are not be allowed to be interact with this person. This is the most important and most hegemony for American here. The constant is American hegemony are there. So following point here, the institution architect of the American state is the very first constant. In American, there is a system of division of power between two the branch of government. You know that is the most important for us money here American. Due to the division of power, restrictions are placed on the executive branch upon the exercise of American military power. This is important. Due to this division of power, restrictions are placed on the executive branch upon the exercise of American military power here. The second constant stem for the open nature of American society. It is basically domestic in nature. This is important. The second constant system from the open nature of American society. It is basically domestical in nature. This is important here. The next point here, the people participant regarding to the deep questioning of working of the government is a seen. And this factor is a husk constant on USA military action overseas here. This is important. The third constant is a North Antarctica Threat Organization, means NATO. There is a North Antarctica Threat Organization, NATO. It is the most significant among all the, but we get more important in the future. NATO is the only organization in the international system that could be a possible moderate the size of American power because it has a strong hold as the US market economics. This is important. The NATO is the only organization in their international system that could be possible moderate the size of the American power because it has a strong hold as the USA market economics. And third constant regarding to NATO is the most important for the future. You know that this is the most important point here, the present day hegemony of America. This topic was till this. We will be do their next topic in the next part. If you like it, then please like, share, subscribe and share the video as much as possible. Do not think subscribe and save in your mobile.